For the past 70 years, the pattern has been the same. The US president asks for something, and the Canadian Prime Minister complains, perhaps requests a small favor, and eventually gives in. Canada always gives in because it has no choice. When you're next to a giant like the US, you don't argue. You just hope it doesn't hurt you. But recently, something surprising happened. The giant moved. Donald Trump tried to force Canada into a corner by making demands on trade, energy, and the border, thinking Canada would give in easily. But instead, something unexpected happened. Mark Carney, a Canadian financial expert, didn't panic. He didn't shout. He didn't lash out on social media. He simply said no. That calm response shocked the US government. This moment is changing how we see power between these two countries. The United States, which used to bully Canada into submission, is now facing a country that is no longer scared. Canada is being careful and thinking ahead. Over the next few minutes, I'll explain exactly what happened and why this is such a big deal. This isn't just about trade issues like dairy or lumber. This is about who holds real power in North America. And for the first time in a long time, it might not be the person sitting in the White House. Here's what led to this point. 3 days ago, the US sent Canada a document with a list of demands. This wasn't just about small trade changes. These were big sweeping demands. The US wanted Canada to rewrite parts of a trade deal that involved energy, allowing the US to get Canadian oil and power at cheap prices. They also demanded that Canada stop taxing certain digital services and align its foreign policy with the US on China. The US warned Canada if they didn't agree within 48 hours, Trump would impose a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Canada, including cars, food, and oil. Normally, the Canadian Prime Minister would go to Washington, smile, shake hands, and make some compromises to keep things peaceful. But instead, Mark Carney took a different approach. He didn't rush to Washington. Instead, he held a press conference in Ottawa, the Canadian capital. He didn't shout or get angry. He simply said Canada would not sign the demands and that Canada's resources belong to Canadians. And then he dropped a major statement. If the US goes ahead with the tariffs, Canada won't just retaliate. It will use a special clause in the trade deal to protect itself. Now, what is this special clause and why is it so important? It's called Clause 14, and it allows Canada to redirect important resources to other countries if its security is at risk. In simple terms, if the U.S. imposes tariffs and threatens Canada's economy, Canada can sell its key resources like lithium and uranium to Europe and Japan rather than the U.S. This would be a big blow to the U.S. since these resources are crucial for both the military and growing technologies like electric vehicles. This wasn't just a protest. This was a statement that Canada would no longer be pushed around. And the world is paying attention. Trump's response was typical. He went to social media, calling Carney weak and even threatening to build a wall on the northern border. But here's the thing about threats. They only work if people are listening. While Trump was yelling online, Carney was quietly working behind the scenes. He reached out to the European Union, Mexico, and even state governors in Michigan and New York who were worried about losing Canadian trade. What happened wasn't just about rejecting a deal. It was about rejecting the idea that the U.S. can control Canada. So why does all this matter? Let's look at a few key examples. First, the energy sector. Trump often talks about U.S. energy dominance, but here's the truth. Much of the electricity in the U.S. Northeast comes from Canada. New York City, Boston, and other parts of the Northeast depend on energy from Hydro-Quebec, a Canadian company. When Carney refused Trump's demands, he wasn't just defending Canada's pride. He was protecting the energy supply to major U.S. cities. If Canada decides to stop exporting power, it could hurt U.S. states that rely on this energy. That's why, after Carney's refusal, the price of electricity futures spiked. The energy markets knew that Canada didn't need to fight with missiles. It could just stop sending power, and U.S. cities would be left in the dark. Second, the auto industry. The U.S. auto industry isn't just American. It's North American. Car parts move back and forth across the U.S.-Canada border many times before a car is finished. If Trump imposes tariffs, the auto industry would suffer a lot. A leaked letter from Michigan's governor warned that 3 major car plants in the state would close in just 4 days if tariffs are imposed. This isn't just about Canada protecting its jobs. It's about American workers who could lose their jobs if the trade is disrupted. Third, Clause 14. This clause is key because it allows Canada to sell its critical resources to countries other than the U.S. These resources are needed for military equipment and electric vehicles, which are growing industries. Carney's threat to use this clause shows that Canada could sell these resources to Europe and Japan instead of the U.S. This is a major blow to the U.S. because the Pentagon relies on these resources. The market responded by increasing the value of Canadian mining stocks that have deals with Europe. Trump thought he had the upper hand, but Canada is showing it has its own power. Canada has trade agreements with the European Union, Japan, and other nations. The U.S., on the other hand, is isolated, and that's something Trump didn't expect. Now, what does all this mean for you? If tariffs are imposed, prices will go up. The cost of food, cars, and other goods will increase. People will lose jobs, especially in industries that rely on smooth trade between the U.S. and Canada. But the bigger issue is trust. For years, Canada was seen as a reliable neighbor to the U.S. But now that trust is being tested. If the U.S. and Canada can't work together peacefully, it will make both countries weaker. The future of North America is uncertain. So what happens next? There are three possible scenarios. Scenario 1, Trump backs down. The stock market reacts poorly, and Trump claims victory, saying that Canada agreed to some small changes. Carney stays quiet and prepares for the next round. Scenario 2, Trump doubles down. He imposes tariffs and Canada retaliates. Trade between the two countries stops. Both economies suffer and inflation rises. The U.S. could enter a recession. Scenario 3, the tariffs stay, but they are smaller. Canada accelerates its shift toward Europe and Asia. Over the next few years, the North American economy starts to separate, and Canada becomes more aligned with Europe. The U.S. becomes more isolated. Carney is preparing for the third scenario. He isn't hoping for a trade war, but he's ready for it. He knows that if he gives in, Trump will just keep demanding more. Carney is thinking about the long-term future, while Trump seems to be focused only on short-term wins. This isn't just about trade. It's about who has the power in North America. And for the first time, it might not be the person sitting in the White House. Subscribe to my channel for more analysis like this.